And our final conference championship game, the Big Ten championship game, Purdue and Michigan. We've got Michigan 16-point favorites, 51.5 the total in this game. We're at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, home of the Colts for this game. This is every year where the Big Ten championship game is. Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt, Fox Television on Saturday night for this one. What a job by Michigan, obviously, against Ohio State. There aren't enough words to describe how good that was. I mean, it was close in the first half. C.J. Stroud was making some plays, and then the second half, sometimes you don't overcomplicate it and overthink this great game of football that we all love to watch, we all love to bet. Sometimes when you're just the bigger man, you're the tougher team, you're the more physical team, you win the football game. And that was Michigan in the second half against Ohio State last week. They just said, you know what? At the point of attack, in the trenches, along the line of scrimmage, we're just going to beat you up and bloody you. And that's exactly what they did to Ohio State. The two just gut-wrenching big touchdown runs late in that game, just absolutely impressive. And again, so much for the Ohio State defense, which, look, at times this year looked a lot better, but push came to shove. They couldn't get it done with an ailing Blake Corum basically standing there on the sidelines, not even able to play. And there's Donovan Edwards rolling into the football game and still doing just a tap dance all over that Ohio State run defense. Very, very impressive job by Michigan. And I said also all week, the Hitting the Book show, the College Football Pub Hub show, I said, if they're going to win this game, they need J.J. McCarthy. He doesn't have to be spectacular, but he's got to be very good. He's got to be mistake-free. He's got to be able to make plays throwing the ball, and more importantly, he's got to be able to make plays running with it as well and escaping the pocket. And he was able to do that for the Michigan Wolverines on the road in a tough environment in Columbus, a place where they had not won in 22 years since 2000. Lloyd Carr was the head coach. Drew Henson was the quarterback the last time Michigan had won at Ohio State prior to Saturday. So a very impressive job by them. From a spot perspective, from a situational perspective, you can understand why at least for me, there's some hesitancy to lay this many points with Michigan. Michigan doesn't need to win by margin here. Michigan wins, they're fine when it comes to the playoff. And you're coming off that emotional, that huge game. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm just a little bit leery of laying this many points after that kind of game. Even though the potential is there for them to not only beat Purdue, but maybe beat them decisively. Because when you look at Purdue, they did beat Illinois. You got to give them credit. Illinois is a pretty solid team, but outside of playing Illinois, where is the phenomenal win, I guess you could say, on is it Minnesota when they had a banged up Ibrahim? I don't know about that. Is it Maryland or Nebraska? I don't think so. It's certainly not Northwestern or Indiana. Their last two wins, Purdue. And of course, they also lost to Iowa and Wisconsin, which are two of the teams that are two of the better teams, at least in their division in the Big Ten. So is there ability for Purdue to hang tough in this game with that run defense against this Michigan, rushing attack, which even without Corum, and we'll have to see if Corum's able to go here, even with Edwards was able to get the job done. Purdue's run defense isn't bad. 36th in the country, 128 rushing yards per game allowed. Solid numbers against the run, but have they seen a run offense and rushing attack this good now as they prepare to play Michigan? That's the other question you have to ask yourself. The last three games in particular, we've seen this Purdue run defense give up just 3.9 yards per carry. That is solid. That's what you want to see, when you're playing a team like Michigan. So that's going to be the big matchup here. Purdue's run defense, the numbers are good, but at the same time, they have not faced a ton of the kind of teams that will run the football to this high level of capability like a Michigan will. That's going to end up being the big question here in this game. You look at series history. Now, they haven't played in a few years, but, Michigan has dominated Purdue. But, again, all of those meetings were more than 5 years ago or previously. So you can't really put too much stock into that. This is really a game where I'm probably not going to have a strong take on it, feel for it either way, side or total. I will say this. There is some truth to the fact that Purdue is an underdog, is not a bad way to go this season. You look at their results catching points. Penn State in the first game of the season, 35-31. They were 3.5, 4-point dogs. You either lost barely or you pushed. They were 1.5-point dogs at Syracuse. They lost by 3 right in that game. So as dogs, they lost by 4, they lost by 3. Dogs at Minnesota, won outright. Dogs at Maryland, won outright. 1.5-point dogs at Wisconsin. They'd lost by 11, but again, 11 keeps them in this game. They also had 6.5-point dogs at Illinois. They won that game outright. So this is a team that when they've been priced as an underdog, they haven't lost a game by more than 11 points all season long. But the caveat is all of those teams aren't as good as Michigan. So that's always the counter argument to that. So that's why the back and forth that I'm basically spewing right now here on Hitting the Books is the very same back and forth I'm having in my own head, in my own brain, in my own mind right now. And it's probably why I'm going to end up ultimately passing on this game. But what also would concern me is Aiden O'Connell in the passing game is very good for Purdue, and they're capable of moving the ball through the air, where even if Michigan's up by 3 touchdowns late, fall asleep, play prevent defense, passive defense. And as I always say about prevent defense prevents you from covering. That's why I think it should be called prevent defense. And you worry something like that might show up late in the game if Michigan's up by 3 touchdowns. So tough call all the way around. I'd actually slightly lean Purdue if I was forced to get involved in this game. What do you think here, Conor? Purdue, Michigan, Big Ten title.
Yeah, hats off to Michigan, especially in that second half. That's what I think you go to here. I think you like Purdue, take them early. Maybe Michigan off the huge win is just a little asleep. Get Purdue, even first quarter, first half, you can get them 9 points, 8.5. I think they can linger. And Michigan showed it again, even though they had a pretty good first half. They just shut it down the second half. So I think at halftime, take Michigan, depending on what's going on. Michigan wins. I just don't know, if they cover this number. You know what? The Purdue, against the run, the defense kind of been hit and miss. I know they were beating Indiana. They gave up 200 yards last week, but they only gave up 98 to Brown, in Illinois. So McCarthy was phenomenal. Was he going to throw it around again here? Maybe. That kid played great. He played unbelievable. Biggest game of his life. He came up big. But another big one here. So Michigan wins. Yeah, I just don't know in the end. I'm going to look Purdue early here and then maybe bet Michigan live.